In today's video, we're going to be talking extra places. How's it going, guys? It's Matt. Firstly, please excuse the current background. I know it's a little creased in places. We've got some shadows going across it. I'm hoping to get a new one in the next sort of week or so we'll get that sorted soon. Now, one of the most common topics I get asked about over on Instagram is extra places. And now with Cheltenham coming up and extra places playing a huge role in the festival, I thought now would be a good time to have a chat about them. In this video, I'll go through what extra places are, how we can find races offering extra places, a beginner's strategy for choosing which horse to bet on, and how to actually place the bets themselves. So yeah, let's get into it. If you've been match betting for a while, you've probably heard people talking about making hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds from extra places each month. Obviously, when people hear the amounts that are getting thrown around, it's understandable that it's going to pique a little bit of interest. But if you're not familiar with what extra places are, the basics of the offer are actually quite simple. Bookmakers will usually pay out on a certain amount of places on each way bets. So let's say, for instance, they're paying out 3 places on a race. However, a bookie may well release an extra place offer, and instead of paying out on the standard 3 places, they're now paying out on 4 places instead. So if our horse finishes in the extra place, which in this instance will be 4th, then we make a profit. Now, don't worry if this makes no sense whatsoever currently. Hopefully it'll become clearer as we go along in this video. So let's very quickly talk about how we can find races offering extra places. Now, when I first started out, I actually tried to find all these offers manually, and I think a lot of people do the same thing. And this is hugely time consuming, and there is actually a much easier way. If you jump over to OddsMonkey, they actually list all of the races offering extra places on that day in their daily offer calendar, so we haven't got to go searching and trying to find them ourselves. Here it actually gives us all the details of how many runners are in the race, as well as the amount of places being paid out as well. So all the information we need is actually there on this screen. And that's it. Now we know what races are offering extra places, let's jump into the laptop and we'll go through a basic strategy of knowing which horse to choose for this offer. Okay guys, so we're inside OddsMonkey itself now. First thing we need to do in terms of finding horses to bet on is we need to open the extra place matcher. And to find that, if you come up here to tools, matchers, you can see the extra place matcher is down the bottom. So if you guys click on that, you'll then get taken to this page here. This is the extra place matcher. And you can see that it's got a list of all of the races that we've just seen on the other page offering extra places for today. Now, if we take a look at one of the races as an example, and we'll go through the criteria of how to know which horse to choose. So let's have a look and go with the Newbury at 4:10 this afternoon. Now, firstly, I should say this strategy, it's not the only strategy. I know there are other people that use slightly different ones. This, for me, though, is the most beginner-friendly strategy for knowing which horse to choose. So what we want to do is we want to be looking at the implied odds. Now, I know with match betting, normally we focus on the qualifying loss. Ignore that section for now. We don't need to be looking at that. We need to be looking here at the implied odds instead. And the 2 criteria we want to be looking at implied odds that are higher than the number of runners in the race and higher than the horse's current back odds. So we can see the horse's back odds are actually listed down here on the left-hand side. And in terms of knowing the number of runners in the race, we can jump back over to the page we were on previously, scroll down to the Newbury 4:10, and we can see that this one has got 13 runners in the race. So now what we want to be looking at is we want to jump back over to the extra place matcher, and we need to make sure the implied odds tick the 2 criteria. So we want to be looking for implied odds that are higher than 13, as that's the number of runners in the race, and higher than the horse's current back odds. Now, because we're recording this video a good sort of 2.5, almost 3 hours before this race actually starts, we're not going to be able to find anything that we can bet on sort of this early on in the day. So we'll have to fiddle around with the odds a little bit just to give you guys an example. So if we take this horse here with Ladbrokes Northern Bound, you can see here its implied odds of 15. So they're higher than the number of runners in the race, but they're not higher than the horse's back odds of 29. But let's say that this horse's odds were actually 34 instead of 29. You can see now the implied odds of the horse are 43.27, so higher than the number of runners in the race, and they're higher than the horse's current back odds. So if these odds were real, this of course would be a fantastic horse to bet on. And as you can see here, our qualifying loss would be £1.76, and if our horse finishes in the extra place, so if it finishes 4th, we make a profit of £74.24, which is paid in cash. There's no free bets here with extra places. Now this is with a £10 each way stake, which is a £20 bet overall. But if we were to put this up, let's say to maybe £25 each way, so £50 bet overall, you can see that our potential profit goes up to £185 and a qualifying loss of £4.39. Now, one thing I should mention, this qualifying loss, we will make a qualifying loss if the horse finishes in any other position apart from 4th. So to be clear, we only make a profit if the horse finishes 4th. If it finishes 1st, 2nd, 3rd, anywhere else, will make a qualifying loss of £4.39. So just to make sure you guys kind of understand what I'm saying, we'll go through another quick example. We'll look at the horse slightly above, so everything for you. Again, currently its implied odds aren't great, so we wouldn't be betting on this, but let's say that its odds were 15 instead of 13. And again, you can see the implied odds shoot up to 20. So again, they match the two criteria that we need. They're higher than the number of runners, and they're higher than the horse's back odds of 15. So again, if this horse's odds were at this level, this would be another fantastic horse to get on. And to be honest, that's it. That's kind of the strategy in a nutshell. It's nice and easy. I think a lot of people sometimes kind of overcomplicate extra places because it can be a bit tricky to get your head around to begin with. But if you start with this strategy, it's very difficult to go wrong. Now, one thing I will mention with extra places is it is, of course, an offer that doesn't guarantee profit. So much like 2-ups, you can go on some quite long stretches of not winning anything and only eating qualifying losses. So do please make sure that you're using kind of standard bankroll management and make sure you're not, smashing huge stakes on extra places. One, because again, you can go on long streaks of not winning, and if you've got a slightly lower bankroll, you don't really want that to be eating into that. And two, you'll find that you'll get gubbed fairly quickly if you start smashing extra places with kind of £50 each way bets. So I'd recommend starting at the lower stakes of sort of £10 each way, perhaps sort of £15, £20 each way if you want to go a little bit higher. Also worth mentioning that you can use gubbed accounts for extra places. That's one of the main benefits of extra places and having gubbed accounts is you can use them until you get stake restricted, of course, then it becomes a bit of a pain to try and use them. But yeah, hopefully you guys kind of get an idea of the basic strategy for extra places. As I say, it's not set in stone. If you want to adapt it slightly, do feel free. But if you're just getting into extra places, particularly with Cheltenham coming up, this would be the easiest strategy, I would say, to put in place. What you will find, much like I mentioned earlier, is often the implied odds, they won't be where you need them to be until slightly closer to the start of the race. So do be prepared that these odds may jump around while you're placing your bets. So I think another thing that can be quite confusing with extra places is actually knowing how to place the bets. Because we do need to place 3 bets for an extra place offer. We place 1 at the bookmaker, an each way bet, and then 2 lay bets at the exchange. So let's go through that now. Okay, so we've opened up Betfair Sportsbook and we've opened up Smarkets as our exchange. Now what we're actually going to do, just to confuse you guys, is use a slightly different race and use the 335 at Newbury instead. Now currently there's no decent matches for the extra places on this race, so we won't actually be placing any bets, but I'll show you guys what you need to do and the process of sort of placing the bets here. So let's just pick this horse here of Never Been to Paris. So we need to find that firstly on our bookmaker. There it is. So we just need to left click as you would with any other bet and add it to your bet slip. Now when it comes to placing bets, all the information that you need for extra places is all here in this little section here. I don't know if I can click on it. I can't. It's all in this section. So if we're going to use £10 each way stakes, let's say, what we need to do is head up to our bet slip and we would put £10 in the box here. We need to make sure that we tick this each way box. This is massively important. If you don't tick this each way box, then we won't qualify for the extra place offer. So by ticking on each way, you can see that now our total stake is £20. You can see it down the bottom here. So we're putting a £20 bet on, a £10 each way bet. So then all we would need to do is just place bet, and that's our bet on over at the sportsbook or at the bookie. And then what we need to do is head over to the exchange and place our 2 lay bets. So if we jump back to the extra place matcher and look at Never Been to Paris, we need to put a lay bet on the win part and on the place part. So if we jump over to Smarkets, you can see this is the to win section here. So if we come down, if I make this smaller actually, you can see you've got 2 markets to place on. So we need to place a lay bet on each one of these. So 1 on the to win and 1 on the to place. So we need to find Never Been to Paris just here and place our lay bet, 17.5. So again, jumping back to the extra place matcher, you guys can see that it actually gives us our lay stake for this. So our lay stake would be 8.57. So we would come over to the stake, put in 8.57, and then click sell, confirm, and that would be our lay bet placed for the win part of the each way bet. We then need to do the exact same thing with the place. So we would find Never Been to Paris, find the lay odds of 5, and come over here. Oh, you actually need to adjust this slightly. So 5. And then again, it gives us the stake that we need to use for our lay bet here. So we would go back over and just put £7.60 as our lay stake, click sell, confirm, and then that would be our 3 bets on. And it's literally, guys, as simple as that. We just need to place those 3 bets. So 1 on the bookmaker, make sure you tick the each way bet to make sure we qualify for the extra place offer. We then need to place a lay bet for the win part and a lay bet for the place part. Again, all of the information is over here on the extra place matcher, so you guys don't have to do any heavy lifting yourself. You just have to do data entry from the extra place matcher into the bookmaker and into the exchange. So there we go, guys. Hopefully you've got a little bit more understanding about what extra places are, how they work, and how we make money from them. Of course, if you have any other questions, do feel free to drop them in the comments below on this video, or follow me over on Instagram and send me a quick DM. If there's anything else that you want to see a video about or had questions about, again, do let me know, and I'm more than happy to do a video for it. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.